Please put your hand. Let's get going. Come on. All right, the man I'm going to introduce is done. Keep it going. Don't stop. The man I'm going to introduce has done 5,000 rehabs, and he did over 1,100 rehabs in a year. Please put your hands together for Mr. Dan Johnson.
Thanks for having me out this evening. Well, as Josh mentioned, my name is Dan Johnson. Our renovation company specializes in renovating properties for institutional owners. A few years back, we got involved with Fannie Mae and became one of their largest general contractors. So if you're questioning how we were able to get to that level of numbers, it was sheer volume based on Fannie Mae. So we basically started with them in 2008. In the high point around 2012, we did 1,100 properties in 1 year, and we renovated in 9 states. So it's not just Chicago. We basically became very good at sourcing vendors and managing them and building a system out that allowed us to accomplish that. The system that we have is not difficult. It just takes the right people. And this business is all about people. So anybody could accomplish a large volume. It just takes a good team. So, if you're thinking about getting into this, or you are doing this, and you want to elevate it, it's not that difficult. It sounds like it, but it isn't. You just really need a good team. If you put a good team together, you can accomplish a lot. So, if anybody has any questions relative to that later, pull me aside and I'll be more than happy to fill you in a little more detail.
Awesome. And I know, you're saying obviously 5,000 rehabs is not that difficult, but how many people here have had difficulty with one rehab? Fair enough. So we're just going to do a question and answer. I've got some questions for him that I've written down, and then we're going to open it up to the audience afterwards, after I go through all my questions. I'm sure you guys will have some great questions. So first off, I guess, what made you want to get into construction?
That was by default. My dad was a carpenter by trade. I became his free labor when I was about 12. And it just kind of went from there. It wasn't really a career decision as a child by any stretch, but like any other kid, you watch dad grow up, you're growing up, and you're like, hey, I like what he does, I want to be like dad. Kind of like that. Free.
And he was a carpenter by trade. Did he also manage? Was he more a general contractor, or was he more like a carpenter?
A little of both. He actually was a commercial carpenter by trade, and then he did side projects on his own. That's where I came in as the free labor on the weekends.
So that's how you got started, and I guess how did that evolve from working with your dad to going out on your own?
Oh boy, that's a journey. Well, when I first started out working with him, I had no idea that I would get into anything in the residential side. When I was a kid, and I still remember this to this day, we were playing in the summertime out in the front yard, and they were rebuilding the road. And I watched this go on for a couple of weeks, and I was amazed. I thought, wow, that's really cool, all the big equipment and everything. And I ended up in the road building business. I started out as a common laborer, worked my way up, got into a management position, and then one day I decided, I'm going to go do this for myself. So we ended up starting a business one day on the weekends, believe it or not, out of the back of a vehicle. Seriously. And, when you talk about how you get into something, it's almost surreal. You just kind of end up somewhere in life, right? And a lot of people do it by design, but this was not by design. We ended up building that company up to about $15 million a year in revenue. We had about 70 employees, and I got tired of it. I got up one day and I told my wife, I don't want to do this anymore. It was very difficult, challenging. We did a lot of municipal work. We actually owned some asphalt plants. We did a lot of municipal and state work. The challenges with that became very, very difficult. And it became not fun at one point, so I decided to get out. Took a little time off. Then I got into some land development deals with some friends of mine that were actually customers. And they were kind enough to bring me in as a minority partner. My expertise was obviously in the land development part, so we would put the infrastructure in developments. Well, lo and behold, 2007 got here. And things got real tight. All of a sudden, the projects weren't moving, things weren't selling. I think my favorite story at that time is we noticed the problem when the last lot that we sold was to a bank.
Yeah.
And they put the walls up, and they came in one day and said, we're done. Literally the next day. They stopped building the bank.
Yeah.
That's when you know there's a problem. So we were kind of stuck in this thing. We're trying to figure out, what are we going to do now? So I get a smart idea. I'm going to start this little company, and I'm going to service the banks on unwinding their inventory. Problem with that is, banks didn't want to put a dime into anything. So that theory didn't work out very well. And then I started servicing a couple of local realtors with some of their REO needs. And one of them happened to be a Fannie Mae REO broker. And the next thing you know, he's mentioning, hey, they're looking to maybe ramp up their contractor pool. You might want to throw your hat in that ring. Okay, sounds like a good idea. I had no idea what the hell they were going to be doing. Wow, big miscalculation. So we end up getting into Fannie Mae, long story short. They came up, they went through contractors, they come up from Dallas, they interviewed 20, and they picked a few of us out. We were fortunate enough to be one of them.
Now, obviously working with REOs and the bank has some challenges in and of itself. So once you got hired from the banks, were they quick to pay you, or did it take a little while to get money from your jobs? And how did you float the money for, I guess I'm kind of answering the question, but how did you float some of that money, especially starting out in that, when you're talking about doing REOs? Because if anyone here is an REO broker, especially in the past when there was this flood of REOs, it took a while for people to be reimbursed. So I'm sure the same was true as a contractor.
I have no idea. It was, to this day, I still don't understand how the hell we got through a big portion. Because at one point, Fannie Mae, it was typical for us, to have in excess of $1 million out all the time. I don't even know.
So they didn't give you 50% up front?
No 50% down. So don't fall for that trick. That one kills me. But initially they were around a 45-day turn if everything went right. And, we self-performed a lot of the work, and then we subcontracted a lot of the work. So we're basically project managers, really what we are. And, it was very difficult to find people in the early days who could support that. Because, we could only front pay so much, and then we're out. You couldn't get a line of credit from the bank for anything. They wouldn't give you 10 cents. So the jobs were coming in so fast, they were getting done so fast, that eventually the cash flow just started. And we were able to manage to get through it. I honest to God, I really don't even know how at this point. I still look back at this day and think, man, that was incredible. How the hell did that happen? Because, you know, any business, the key thing in business is cash flow. If you don't have cash flow, you don't have anything. And, you know, it still amazes me to this day. I mean, I had some really good companies that worked with us and got through that whole thing. And once it started rolling, then it was just, it was a non-issue. It became a non-issue. But, you know, in the early days, man, it was tough. I mean, it was hard. Very, very difficult to manage getting their work done and not getting paid. You know, so very difficult.
And how did you change from doing infrastructure, then going into the residential? Was it that when you heard of this opportunity? I guess what made you?
Well, you know, I've been around the production home building basically my entire career. So I worked with many of the large builders in town. A lot of people probably recognize their names, Kimball Hill and Pasquinelli and Town and Country and all the big production home builders. So I understood the volume game. I mean, that was kind of what we did. So we understood that. And when this thing started up, it wasn't like I said, well, I'm going to get out of land development and go into residential construction. It was just the opportunity of the time. There wasn't any other construction work out there. You couldn't build a doghouse for anybody at one point. And, you know, we just ended up there. There really wasn't a plan. I didn't get up one day and go, I'm going to go knock on Fannie Mae's door and see what happens. It wasn't like that. It just evolved. And this whole thing, I think, was even new to them at that level, because at one point they were doing roughly 30,000 houses a month across the United States. So it was even a new thing to them as well. So we all kind of just, as that thing ramped up on their side, you know, they were trying to learn how to handle it as well. So we all just kind of ended up in this thing, and it just, you know, it's worked out. I mean, we've been very fortunate to have that work through, you know, probably 13 or so before things started to tick up a little bit. But
Yeah, I mean, I guess, so this new niche came up during that time, and I guess a lot of the people that were in the trades, I guess they had nowhere else to go too. I mean, you were in a way a job creator for a lot of these people, because they might not have had any other opportunities. Like you said, you couldn't build a doghouse. And so how did you vet all these people knocking down your door to work for you?
well, in the beginning, when we were local, it was fairly easy, you know, because you could just about get in a truck and go meet a guy for a sandwich or something and say, hey, you know, what's he look like? You know, what's his vehicle look like? Hey, do you have a job we could go see? Well, when you're out of state, that's not so easy to do. And, you know, again, we had the background coming from the production home building world, so I understood that. Back in the early 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, I had 15 of the top 20 home builders in Chicago under contract. We had 53 subdivisions we were doing. So we understood the vetting process because we had gone through it with them so many times. So it really just, it wasn't that difficult. And I know, again, you use the example 5,000, I understand that. But when you come from a system that you've been exposed to, it's very easy to implement it, right? I mean, if you had to learn something like that from scratch, it would have been a nightmare. So we understood that vetting process, so we were able to build out a system of how we vet contractors out. And it worked. And we constantly refined it and made it better and better. And once we got it rolling, it was pretty easy. Now I say that relative to getting a guy up in northern Wisconsin, you know, November 1st when deer season gets here. You know. Not happening. You know, the guy, you know, I mean, if you want to bid up there in the winter, you got to go to the bar.
So it's a great point. So, I mean, obviously, it's probably a very detailed system, but I mean, one of the biggest thing that investors struggle with, and I want to circle it back to what we do as investors, is vetting contractors. How do you, let's say Joe the contractor, he sees, you know, I get calls all the time, hey, I saw your real estate sign, are you guys hiring for any work? You know, I'm a roofer. How do you take it, somebody just coming off the street and calling you and they want to do work for you? How do you obviously we can't go into super in detail, but how do you vet someone just off the street that might call you or find your information somehow?
Well, we obviously had a lot of that. I mean, once guys found out who we were and what we were doing. Now, we flew below the radar for many years in this system. Nobody knew who we were. I hadn't even handed out a business card in 6 years. I mean, it was pretty crazy. And we couldn't keep up with everything that was going on, but people were finding out. Again, we dealt with a lot of realtors, okay? So people would get referred to us by realtors. They'd come in. Well, again, when you're local, pretty easy to do. Go, well, let me see a job. First, you start with, first question. They call, knock on the door, whatever. First question, you got any insurance? Hey, that's the first thing you ask. Oh, yeah, I got that. Okay, get us a certificate. There went 70% of the people. They just disappeared. And then you take it a step further. Local, you can go look at jobs. You want to meet with them, see them face to face. I mean, there's more to it, but you know, to keep it fairly simple. Out of state's another story. That's a much different situation because to try to find out something about another company in another state is a real challenge. But again, we had a lot of realtors that we were dealing with, so we were able to go to them and say, have you heard of XYZ? Have you heard of ABC? Oh yeah, we know them, or no we don't. And then now you got a whole nother animal to attack. But a lot of times we were able to get good information from our trade partners, you know, the pool that we were involved with. So that helped a lot. But you know, without giving up too many trade secrets, it's an art. I mean, you got to really work hard to go through these guys because I'll tell you, and that's another thing. You know, I laughed when you said no 50% down. That one just kills me. I never got 50% ever in my life. I don't understand why somebody would give somebody 50% down. How many times have you heard, oh yeah, I gave him 50% and I never seen him again? I mean, you hear it all the time. I'm like, why would you do that? Because if you have a true company, okay, that company should be able to, at the very least, start your project. And then, if they don't understand a draw system, wrong guy. Get rid of them. Don't hire them. Don't even start. Because, I'm sorry, you know, if there's guys in here to get 50% down, your contractors in the room, good for you, but I'm sorry, not for me. I'm not giving you 10 cents, and I wouldn't expect anybody to give me 10 cents. Because you have to be able to get the project started, Carrie, and then have a payment system. That was a big thing. You know, that one amazes me, it really does.
And when you're going to the job sites, let's say we've got a guy, he's giving us the insurance. I take it a step further. I actually give people an application. Of course, you probably do something similar. Like, do you have insurance? That's a question on there. Of course, then I ask for insurance. Can I see your job sites? How long of a warranty do you provide? I ask all these questions on my application. Let's say they go through the initial vetting process. We go to one of their job sites. What are you looking for on that job site?
Well, first and foremost, is it organized? What's the thing look like? Is a bomb went off? You know, or is it staged pretty well and organized? And, you know, I mean, you know, if you go on any professionally run construction site, it's basically broom clean at the end of the day. But, you know, when you get into OSHA rules, they run a different operation. That's a different level, I understand it. But basically you want to just see, are they organized? How efficient are they? What do the guys look like? I mean, do we have the A team out here or the F troop? You know, I mean, it's some common sense stuff. It's not like, you know, you see a guy out there using the damn drill for a hammer. It's not the right guy, you know. And the project manager's standing over in the corner with his thumbs and his, you know, coveralls, and he's, okay, you failed, bye. I mean, at some point it becomes about common sense. Do they look like they know what they're doing? Just that simple. And you'd be surprised.
That's awesome.
Vehicles, another thing. Piece of junk. Is it going to make it to the next job? Really? You can't, I mean, I don't know.
So how are you creating, with all these jobs, is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, are they providing you scopes of work, or are you guys creating them for them, and then they say, well, we don't approve this, but we'll have you do that. How does that work?
Great question. A little of both. Most of the banks, Fannie Mae, Freddie, any of the banks, most of them will have kind of an idea of what they would like, you know, they'll have a budget of some sort. It may not be an accurate one, but they'll have an idea. Now, with Fannie specifically, they will come up and go, Josh, you're the broker, you're handling a property, you create a scope of work. So the brokers actually give a scope of work, but not so detailed sometimes. We've got
realtors.
Yeah, well, we've gotten a lot of them that said paint. A lot of them said paint and anything else you see. Well, what do you want me to do to that thing? I could tear it down and build you a new one. What do you want? I don't know. But the one thing that they don't do is give you a budget number, right? So they would basically give us a very minor scope, and then we would go through the house and take it a step further. So, you know, we understand it has to pass FHA financing. That's the main criteria. Once you get it to that level, then that's what you were there to do. So it was kind of a combination. But it was difficult because we don't know what they want to do. You know, now if you're an investor, it's a different story. Have an idea and get it detailed. Because the last thing you want is somebody coming in there going, I didn't know you wanted a toilet in there. I thought you were going to use the hole in the floor. I mean, you got to be specific about what you want. Specific in your products. Scope the thing out, have a plan, and be detailed. It's very simple, but people, they don't get it and get into a lot of trouble. Because I can guarantee you one thing. I can go and get you a kitchen faucet for $29. Or I can get you one for $129. There's a major difference in materials. So, you know, be specific. Be specific about what you're asking for in your rehabs. I mean, you want a detailed scope of work with those items spelled out. Don't just say a faucet, because you get in a lot of trouble that way.
Yeah, I mean, something we do, we have a materials schedule with our scope of work, and then what we like to do is even put, and this is just an idea for you guys, we put where you can buy it, how much the item is, so that way the contractor isn't having to figure out even the math. You want to make the contractor's life easier too, and I'm referring to us as investors. Otherwise, you're going to have bids all over the place. One guy might be, like he said, might be bidding your project out with a $29 kitchen faucet, and another contractor might bid it out with a $200 kitchen faucet, and you're wondering why one bid is for $30,000 and another bid is for $60,000. So having your materials, like what you just said, your vanities, your tiles, you want to be as specific as possible, and most of your work should be done on the front end as an investor. So you don't encounter that, and you don't encounter contractors, and and where they say, well, I didn't know you wanted that, because in reality, they are not mind readers. They don't know what level of finishes you're gonna wanna put in the house.
Well, and they're gonna try to make the most that they can on the project. I mean, that's, everybody's in business to make money. An investor's gonna try to make as much as they can on the house. Contractor's gonna try to make as much as he can on the rehab. That's what he's there to do. For us specifically, we actually designed an entire estimating system, complete with SKU numbers and the whole ballgame. So when we go in and do a job, we would say, Josh, what do you want in here? Well, I don't know. Well, this is what we think. So we could come in and give you an idea, but it might not fit what you had in mind for the property. So we can give you alternatives. And, I want to say that took us about 11 months, I think. We had a guy banging away on this thing, SKU numbers a whole bit. And then what we did was we set up different levels of finishes. So we have all of our spreadsheets have different levels of finish. So we can give you level A, level B, level C. Do you want brushed nickel? Do you want oil rub bronze? So we built these entire templates so we can come in and go boom, boom, boom. Now it's detailed. You get exactly what you're going to put into the house, and you're, much more secure in what you're getting for your money.
And I mean, I like Home Depot just because of the fact that they have the internet. They have their website is very intuitive, and versus like Menards is a little bit more cumbersome, in my opinion, to navigate online. What's great too with Home Depot, you get the SKU number. So just like I said, when I have that materials list, I'm not only labeling what it is, but I'm putting the SKU number of where they can buy it. And then also, to make the contractor's life easier, to make our projects go on time as close as possible, when I'm on Home Depot's website, I'm looking for items that are in stock. Because how many times have you gotten where somebody wants you to put something and then it's a 4-week lead to get a door or something like that?
It happens all the time. They have a lot of standard items, sure, but does that fit that specific remodel? These aren't cookie cutters. Not every single thing is going to fit every single house, right? Receptionist, and we've gone all different ways with it. Really, everybody's into cell phones now anyway, so having somebody sit there doesn't do you any good. But
So when you did 1,100 jobs in a year, what was like an average scope of work? I mean, how much work were you doing on a place? You're not doing a rehab on 1,100 houses.
no, that's what I said. They're all over the board. They would be anywhere from a paint job, carpet, appliances, all the way to full gut rehabs.
How many gut rehabs did you end up doing?
Pardon me?
Out of those 1,100, how many of them were actually like major, where you had to do all the plumbing, all the electrical?
Well, we run our numbers. Basically, we track the level of the rehab. So about 40% of what we do is what we consider a light rehab. That would be paint, carpet, appliances, and maybe a couple of fixtures or something like that, light rehab. About another 40% is what we classify moderate. That would be when we're getting into doing maybe a little bit of plumbing work, a little bit of electric, putting in new toilets, new sinks, new countertops, that sort of thing. And then the 20% left is full gut rehabs.
So you weren't doing many where you were actually, doing all the wiring, replacing full plumbing?
About 20%.
So that's about just over 200.
I mean, that specific year, I could pull the data out and run it for you and tell you exactly how much each project was. And that would give you a general idea of what's going on. We have, a room full of files of all the projects. I mean,
Yeah, even if you did 1,100 carpet and paint and appliance jobs, that'd still be a lot.
well, yeah, and I know it sounds crazy, and I get this all the time. People look at it and go, well, that doesn't make any sense. But remember, we're not doing it ourselves. And that's the key. And then back to my comment about building a good team. If you have a good team around you, you can accomplish a lot. It's all about the team.
All right, and our final question of the night.
You had mentioned in one of your comments good software, construction software. Do you have any recommendations for some places for us to start?
Well, we used to run a system, probably one of my favorites was called Master Builder. It's very pricey, but man, it will spit data out like you cannot believe. Almost too much. You'll end up having to dial it back. There's different modules and different levels of that, but it is expensive. I'm not sure what it is these days, but I would assume it's probably in the $6,000 to $7,000 range on the low end, and then the packages go up from there. And then you can get into some really sophisticated software. For this stuff, not necessary. QuickBooks Pro is fine. Fine. Now they have the option too with QuickBooks that you can run it up in the cloud, which is a great feature because we do everything in the cloud. All of our project management systems are up in the cloud. All of our spreadsheets, everything, all in Google Drive. We do everything in Google Drive. Buy stock in Google.
All right, everyone, if you guys could please give Dan Johnson a round of applause.
Thank you for having me.